Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Jesse Collins. I'm an economic officer with the U.S. Embassy here in San Jose. Thank you for joining us today. Today, we're going to be talking about a new funding opportunity offered by the U.S. Embassy in Costa Rica as part of our CARSI program. And we'll get into all of those details shortly, and we're going to present information on the program. We look forward to all of your questions. But first, I want to start off and mention why I'm speaking to you in English. And the reason for that is all program materials, your proposal, supporting documents must be submitted in English. So for that reason, today we will be doing the presentation in English. We encourage you to use the chat button to put in your questions and answers. You can do that in Spanish or in English, and we'll get them translated. But that is the reason we'll be speaking to you in English today. Before we get started, I would like to introduce my co-host today, Rebecca Espinoza Benson, a colleague of mine in the economics section. Rebecca.
Thank you, Jesse. Good afternoon, and thank you for being with us today. Like Jesse mentioned, it's going to tell us about the opportunity, what type of proposals we are looking for, give some details on how to apply, tell you how proposals are selected, and where to learn more information about this opportunity. In the meantime, please put your questions in the chat, just like Jesse mentioned it before. We will have an extensive time to get to them. And questions can be in Spanish and English, so feel free to ask those questions. So, Jesse, let's start it. Can you tell us more about the CARSI novel?
Sure. Thank you, Rebecca. Excellent question. So, as part of the Central America Regional Security Initiative, which from here on out we'll be referring to as CARSI, the U.S. Embassy has just posted a notice of funding opportunity, which from here on out we'll be referring to as a NOFO, to strengthen government institutions through civil society engagement. And if you take one thing away from the presentation today, it is that we highly, highly encourage you, if you are interested in submitting a proposal for this funding opportunity, to read the NOFO. So we will do our best to provide you with highlights from the NOFO. We're going to talk a lot about the details of what we're looking for, who's eligible to apply, but there's no better solution than actually reading the NOFO itself. And so you can find the NOFO on grants.gov, and we'll be putting up a specific link to where you can find that later on, but grants.gov is where you can find it. So the assistance will support U.S. government objectives of improving governance and promoting prosperity in Costa Rica. So the U.S. Congress mandates that the CARSI program funding this year should go towards governance projects. We've been working on CARSI programs in Costa Rica for almost a decade now. Sometimes the focus is more based on security or other pillars of the CARSI program. But over the last few years, our focus has been on governance, improving governance, and that gives us a lot of flexibility in the type of projects that we can fund. So we'll get into more details on what governance is and what those projects could look like shortly. But thank you for your question, Rebecca.
Thanks, Jesse. I think it's very important to follow the instructions and read the novel. Absolutely. I think that will give you the details on how it needs to be implemented and what are the requirements that we need to provide. So now another question. What are we looking for in proposals?
Okay, great. Thank you. As we've mentioned before, Rebecca, essentially with the objective of improving governance, we are looking for proposals that are going to strengthen the services that your municipal or federal government provides to its citizens. So we're looking for programs that are going to have the greatest impact, address governance, and meet the NOFO's objectives. And so when you think about government services, that could be the provision of water, trash pickup. There's, any way that the government affects your lives, that is governance. And our goal is to help improve those services. And as part of the proposals, we're looking for projects that are going to impact marginal or vulnerable communities outside of the Central Valley of Costa Rica, so outside of San Jose and its surrounding areas. All proposals do not have to, you could have a proposal that supports populations in the GAM or San Jose, but the panel that makes the final selection on which proposals are funded is going to give greater consideration to those projects that focus on communities outside of the Central Valley. So improved governance should facilitate citizens' abilities to hold the government accountable for its responsibilities. We're talking a lot about governance and governments, but this is a good time to make clear that our funding cannot go directly to governments. So the municipality of San Jose could not be an awardee for a CARSI grant, and we will talk about who is an eligible organization shortly. But we fully expect that the NGOs or eligible organizations applying for these grants will have reached out to municipal governments, the federal government, to talk about teaming up on a proposal to get a letter of support that they could include in their proposal. That's not a requirement, but it shows that you have buy-in from important government partners, but it will not be the governments themselves that are receiving this funding. Some examples of governance projects include projects that improve government transparency, e-government services, so being able to fill out applications for your small business online instead of waiting in a long line at an office. Those are some examples. Projects that help increase government revenue that the government can then turn around and spend on its citizens. And then lastly, projects that help governments be accountable for using those resources and spending them responsibly. So this year we added some language to NOFO. We could potentially see projects that support Costa Rica's goal of protecting 30% of its marine area. These projects could focus on sustainability and benefit some of the local communities that rely on tourism and or fishing. So coastal communities, Costa Rica is obviously blessed with lots of coastlines. So that's some areas. Also, we funded a few CARSI projects in the e-government area, and as Costa Rica really looks to improve its e-government capacities, proposals that improve the government's ability to perform cyber governance, to protect some of these e-government initiatives, those would be considered as well. Thank you, Rebecca.
Thank you, Jesse. I think that's a very valid point when you were talking about working with municipalities and NGOs together to benefit of these type of programs and the different types that we're talking about. Cyber governance, I think, is vital at this moment, what we have seen lately. Now, I have another question for you. Can you give us some details on awards? What sizes are we looking or thinking here? When are proposals due, for example? When do we need to submit those?
Perfect. Excellent. So we've been funding CARSI programs for nearly a decade now. And this cycle for 2021, the U.S. Embassy is projecting to have approximately $750,000 US to issue in awards. And more than likely, the max award size will be $250,000 because we're hoping to fund 3 to 4 proposals this year. So if you do the math, $750,000 to split between 3 or 4 proposals, it gives you an idea of what project sizes we can fund. And again, we envision a max award would be $250,000 this year. So very important. Thank you, Rebecca, for asking about deadlines and dates and things like that. The NOFO actually went live on April 22nd. So here we are in late May. And so it's been out published for almost a month now. It closes on June 22nd. And what that means is your proposal, all supporting documentation, every registration that's required to submit your proposal, and we'll get into those details shortly, has to be in by June 22nd at midnight. And there are no extensions. And so it doesn't give you a lot of time. Hopefully some of you are already out there working on your proposals, but we're looking at a little bit over a month to go until you can get in a final package. So again, the due date is June 22nd. There are no extensions. We're really hoping to get in some great proposals this year that can support governance initiatives in Costa Rica. And then also I want to add that there is a final date for questions. So if you visit our website, and we'll talk about that in a bit, that you can email questions to San Jose CARSI ESF at state.gov. And I think my colleagues are going to put that in the chat and on the screen. But all of your questions, hey, you've got us live right now, so please put your questions in the chat, and we'll get to them as best as we can. But if you watch this later on, you weren't able to see the presentation live, you think of some questions as you're working on your proposal, please send them to that San Jose CARSI ESF at state.gov address, and we will collect all your questions, and then we will post them to our website so that it's a transparent process and other eligible organizations can see our answer to your question. And that'll happen. The deadline on questions is May 22nd. So we encourage you to get those in ASAP. Thanks, Rebecca.
Thanks, Jesse. I think it's a very valid point to mention. Questions due May 22 if they want an answer directly from us. And the due date to present the program and the project is June 22nd. No extensions, midnight. Thank you. Perfect. Very clear. Now I have another question for you. Who is eligible? Who can participate in this?
Great question, Rebecca. Again, throughout this presentation, I will be stressing that if you're interested, read the NOFO, because right up top there is a very clearly written description of who is eligible for this opportunity. But we're talking about U.S. nonprofit or non-government organizations that have a 501c3 status with the IRS, or we can also fund non-U.S. based NGOs and U.S. and non-U.S. Public and private education institutions. We get questions. We've had a few repeat CARSI awardees. And so, yes, if you currently have a CARSI award, you are eligible to apply again. If you've had one in the past, you can certainly apply again. If you have a current award, we're going to look and make sure that you have the capacity, the personnel to carry out both projects at the same time. And if you had a program with us in the past, we can certainly, sometimes we get questions on, can it be a continuation of what you've worked on? And yes, it can certainly look to further the objectives from your first award. We wouldn't want to see just a duplication of what you've proposed before. It should have some new components and look to have new forms of impact. But yes, we can certainly fund repeat CARSI awardees. Thanks, Rebecca.
Thank you, Jesse. Let's work on an example. Let's say I'm an NGO interested in this opportunity. Can you tell me more about the application process and where I can get information about it?
Great. All right. So let's say you are an NGO interested in this opportunity and you're looking where to get started. I'm going to walk you through right now, if you're sitting at your computer, a few options. So again, the Notice of Funding Opportunity is live. You can find it at the U.S. Embassy website. And I think my colleagues will put up a direct link or put something in the chat that has the direct link to the NOFO on the U.S. Embassy website. But if you just Google U.S. Embassy in San Jose, Costa Rica, and you get to the homepage of our embassy there, you would then click on the Embassy tab. Once you've clicked on the Embassy tab, you would click on a button that says Learn More About the Embassy. And then finally, you will find a link to funding opportunities. And once you're at the funding opportunities page, you should see a link to this CARSI NOFO opportunity. So that is one option. The other option is you can go directly to grants.gov, and I think my colleagues will also put up the direct link to the grants.gov opportunity. But let's just say you forget, you lose that link. You can just go to grants.gov. You can search for grant opportunities or search for grants. And then in the upper left-hand corner, there's a keyword search. From the keyword search, you can put in Costa Rica, and this opportunity will be the first one listed. And this is also a good opportunity to look at other U.S. funding opportunities currently active in Costa Rica. Make sure you choose the CARSI NOFO that shows an open date of April 22nd, 2021 and a closing date of June 22nd, 2021. If you scroll down on that list of opportunities, you'll find some of our older CARSI NOFOs, and we want to make sure, of course, that you're directed to this year's. So once you're in the grants.gov NOFO exact site, which is where you'll be submitting all of your materials, then you can find the NOFO, which I've recommended that you read, a synopsis of the NOFO. related or relevant documents. And we really encourage you to take a look at those documents because it's got some templates in there, some forms that you need to fill out. And as far as templates go, you'll find a budget template, which is a Microsoft Excel spreadsheet. We do not have a proposal template. So as you're reading the NOFO itself, it should be abundantly clear to you what we need to see in a proposal. So, we just ask that you put together a proposal that addresses what we asked for in the NOFO. Okay, so that is how you find the NOFO opportunity if you haven't already done so. As you start working on the proposal, I wanna mention a few things, especially if you're in grants.gov right now. So, if you have not applied for a grant with us in the past, you should know that you need to have a few registrations filled out before you can fully submit a proposal in grants.gov. And so those are a SAMS.gov registration and a DUNS number. If you're a non-US NGO, you'll also need an NCAGE registration. Getting these registrations filled out can be very time consuming. It can be a little confusing. You might need to call their helpline. So we encourage you, if you do not have those registrations handy, to get started on those ASAP. So for SAM.gov, that website is www.sam.gov, and if they haven't already put the link up, they will shortly. But for this registration, you make sure that you're an eligible organization, which is mentioned in the NOFO. And once you have that filled out, you can register for your DUNS number, and you'll put in a lot of the same information you included in your SAMS.gov registration. And I think they'll put up the link to the fedgov.dnb.com link that directs you to how you can get a DUNS number. So non-US organizations that are going to apply for these opportunities I mentioned need to have an NCAGE number. So that is a North Atlantic Treaty Organization CAGE code, and we'll put up that link as well. So again, once you have those 3 registrations, you can input all of those numbers into your grants.gov application or proposal that you'll be submitting to the U.S. Embassy, and you'll be good to go. There's no cost for these 3 registrations. They're absolutely free. If you navigate to the links that we've included in this chat and on the screen, you can go through, fill them out yourself. Again, it might take some time, but it is free to do so. Now, they can be confusing, especially if you haven't, visited these websites before. There are organizations that will charge you a fee to assist you to fill out these forms and get these registrations. That's your call if you want to pursue that option. We just want to make sure that you know that it is not required that you pay someone to do it, and there is no fee unless you elect to pay an organization with experience in working on these websites. So that is, in a nutshell, how you can find the NOFO and how you can get directed to grants.gov and start working on your proposal. Thanks.
Thank you, Jesse. Just a quick question regarding to the evaluation process. Once the deadline is arrived, what is next? What is the evaluation process? How that works?
Yes, excellent question. So again, we're still in the process of collecting proposals up until our deadline of June 22nd. But once we get in all of our proposals, and again, we're really hoping to get a large number of strong proposals this year. So we strongly encourage you to apply. If you're watching this and it's not the right opportunity for you, but you know of an NGO that might be interested in an opportunity like this, please share this live session, share the San Jose CARSI ESF email site to ask questions. And we're really looking to get some strong proposals in. But we get all the proposals in, and then we'll do an initial technical review. So that just means someone on our team will be reviewing the proposals and make sure that you have filled out everything correctly, provided all of the information, that you have all of the required registrations, and that you've submitted all of the documents that are listed in the NOFO that are required to submit a full proposal. So if someone submits a proposal that is not complete and the deadline is passed, that proposal will not make it through technical review and will not be considered by the panel. Once your proposal has made it past technical review, the embassy puts together a panel of experts that will review all of the proposals. Again, they're going to be using the NOFO as their guide to decide which proposals are going to have the greatest impact, which proposals are going to most directly address governance, and which ones will be sustainable. So that is the evaluation process. We typically fund these awards. For this year, we'll be funding the awards at the end of September. I didn't mention this earlier, but awards typically or projects have a life of 18 months to 2 years. So your project would start at the end of September this year if your proposal is awarded, and then would typically have a life of 18 months to 2 years. So again, we encourage you, please put your questions in the chat. Take advantage of this opportunity to ask us live questions. We've also got some frequently asked questions prepared that we can get going on that we, throughout the years, we receive repeatedly. And so again, if you have any questions, we stand ready to get you answers.
Thanks, Jesse. I see a question on Facebook, and they're asking us if these funds can be used to inject money to local businesses, if there is an opportunity.
Excellent. I think that question is from Erica Villalobos. Great question, Erica. Thank you. So I would probably say the answer is no. Again, these funds, if it is a for-profit business, you're likely not going to be, or you will not be an eligible organization as listed in the NOFO. Remember, we're looking to fund nonprofit organizations and education institutions, and so as just a direct capital injection into a small business, that is not going to happen. The project has to be focused on governance. Now, for example, if an NGO has a proposal to work with a government to support entrepreneurs and small businesses in the community, and potentially some funding could get directed through as a governance initiative to support those businesses. Yes, but on the whole, if you're looking at, I'm a small business owner in Costa Rica, potentially struggling because of the pandemic and its effects on the economy. We certainly understand the situation, but that is not what these funds are mandated towards.
Thank you.
But one other thing to add there, we are looking for ways to get creative and help. And so if there's a project that is going to improve government services to small and medium enterprises, that's certainly something we could do. So maybe you're a small business that, let's say you're a construction firm and you have to fill out a lot of permits with your local municipality, and that takes a lot of time, and there are fees associated with doing it in person. If there's a proposal that allows a government to put those, permit applications online, making it easier for the business owner, freeing up time for them to dedicate to other profit-generating activities, that's the type of project we can look into, because that is improving the government services that they are providing to small and medium enterprises.
Thanks, Jesse. We do have a question from Jose Roberto Soto. He's asking us, what are the general examples of prior projects funded by the CARSI funds?
Okay, thank you, Jose Roberto. Great question. And, as I mentioned at the top, when you have a broad goal or objective of improving governance, it really gives us a lot of flexibility in the type of projects we can fund. And so in the past, we funded projects that improve e-government skills and capacities of the government, projects that have improved government transparency on procurement and how the government is spending funds, We've funded projects that improve municipal services to the migrant population, and also, water provision. That's one that we funded a few times, supporting municipal or local government efforts to get clean drinking water to their local communities. Great question.
Thanks, Jesse. And Jose Roberto Soto. We also have another question from Sun Hee. I hope I'm pronouncing the name correctly. If you know, forgive me. Is there a data collection or research to improve the policy implementation governance for a focus group? Example, women, a project that will fall within the framework of governance.
That's a good question. I will come back to that with a more concrete answer, but if the goal is improving governance, yes, the project outcomes have to deliver some improved governance, and so just research, I do not think. Just funding a research project would probably not make sense for the CARSI program, but I think you're close, and that could certainly be part of a proposal where you're doing some case studies or research and then implementing some of the outcomes that you develop from your research. So if you do a research on, again, the question was on focused on women. If you do a baseline study, you have some findings, and then you look to improve, whether it's municipal services to women or some type of federal agencies programs for women, and you implement some of those findings, I think that would make sense. Thank you for the great question.
Thank you, and thank you for the questions. We getting some in our Facebook Live. Carol Acon, does CARSI fund give priority to local initiative versus national ones?
That's a great question, Carol. Really, there's no preference. It's really what type of proposal you can put together. And we've certainly funded CARSI programs that focus on certain regions of the country. So Guanacaste or the Caribbean, they can be directed at municipalities throughout the country. It can be something more national in scope. Now that might be hard with an award that's limited at $250,000, but we don't give a preference. Again, I mentioned that one of our priorities is trying to support marginal and vulnerable communities outside of the Central Valley. So that is a factor. But whether your proposal chooses to work with a handful of communities or is more national in scope, that's up to you. And if the proposal is compelling and we think will have large impact and realistic, that's certainly something we could fund, either or.
Thanks, Jesse. I think that was a very important question, the scope of the project. Now, what about we start with some questions there, like a pre-novel, before when we are working on the process. Can I send a proposal in Spanish?
Okay, great question. And if anyone joined late, you might have missed why we're speaking in English today. But the answer to your question, Rebecca, is no. Everything going through grants.gov, your proposal, all of the supporting documents, your budget narrative, all of the forms that you'll find in grants.gov, those have to be all in English. And so, unfortunately, we're going to need you to submit everything in English, not in Spanish.
Correct. And I think that
actually, Rebecca, sorry to interrupt. Something to add on there is once you, if you are fortunate enough to get awarded the proposal, your interaction with the embassy community, with the grants officer, myself, that will be in English. Your updates, your status reports that you send, those will be in English. So it's just setting the tone for how the relationship will be between the U.S. government and the awardee.
Absolutely, and I think it's just to get ready to future communication. They're all going to be in English. No, understandable. Now, another question: can an organization apply in several countries of Central America? could be somebody from Guatemala or El Salvador wants to apply to another one here in Costa Rica. Is that possible?
Sure. Yeah, no, and again, if you are in an NGO outside of Costa Rica, you can still apply for a CARSI opportunity in Costa Rica. CARSI should have open NOFOs, I believe, in Panama and Belize. Again, you can do a search on grants.gov in Central American countries and determine where those opportunities are open. But you could certainly, depending on the size and capacity of your organization, apply for an award in Costa Rica, apply for one in Panama, and again, whether you could do it as a hedge of if you don't get selected in the other country, maybe you get selected in Costa Rica. We'll certainly be making sure if you get selected in both countries that your organization has the capacity to fill out to complete both projects at the same time. But no, you are not limited to just apply in Costa Rica.
Perfect. So now, going in this kind of the same line, could an organization apply with several proposals in one country?
Yes, that is feasible. You can do multiple proposals for your one organization, but again, these proposals are time consuming, and again, we only have a month to go, really, until June 22nd, the deadline. So each award that we give out will have one primary eligible organization that is the primary recipient, and that is who the U.S. Embassy will be directly corresponding with. So, we've received many proposals, successful proposals that have multiple NGOs as partners on a project, and so potentially your organization could be a prime recipient on one proposal and assisting on another proposal, but each award is only going to have one prime recipient.
Perfect. So now I know that we talk about working with municipality and local governments. Could an organization join efforts with a municipality?
Right. So we fully expect that as part of your proposal, and again, if your focus is on working with a municipal government, you can also have a proposal that works with federal government agencies. We encourage that as well. But again, in the NOFO, you will find which organizations are eligible to be the awardees. Municipalities are not included in that list. Again, it's U.S. Nonprofit organizations, non-U.S. nonprofit organizations, and U.S. and international education institutions, public and private. And so, if you are working on a project to improve municipal water services, we're going to want to see, ideally, in the proposal that a few municipalities have said, we support this project, a letter of support, we're on board with what so-and-so organization has proposed. Again, that's not a requirement, but a municipality will not be receiving the award, but we fully expect them to be part of the proposal.
Thanks, Jesse. Just another question for you. Who can be a grantee and a sub-grantee? The definition or the differentiation between the two of them.
Okay. So for an awardee and a sub-awardee, for those two categories, you have to be an eligible organization. And I just covered that, so I won't repeat exactly what eligible organizations are, but there's different types of organizations that can be involved with the award. So for-profit organizations can be a contractor providing some type of service, but they will not be the primary awardee or the sub-awardee. Those have to be the eligible organizations that we work with.
Thanks. And I have another question. Can a for-profit organization be part of the grant?
Yes. So as I mentioned, for-profits cannot be the awardee or the sub-awardee, but they can be a contractor. So let's say your NGO is paying, as part of your proposal, a for-profit company to do an evaluation of your proposal, or not your proposal, your project. That would be a service that they are providing, and they will be providing a report, which you would then send on to the U.S. Embassy. And so they can be part of your proposal. They can be listed in the budget. But again, they would not be, a for-profit private company cannot be an awardee of this for the CARSI opportunity.
Perfect, thank you. And going to the point of who can participate, what about a trust and a labor union?
Great question. I have to be honest. I'm not an expert on sort of the makeup or organizational structure of trusts or labor unions in Costa Rica or even in the region. But if you are wondering if your labor union can participate in this NOFO opportunity, again, visit grants.gov, read the NOFO, read the section on eligible organizations. I don't think that labor unions are going to fit under the academic institutions portion of who is eligible to apply. So then it would come down to, are you a nonprofit organization? And if you are, and you fit the description in the NOFO, then yes, potentially your labor union or trust could be eligible.
Thank you. I think it's very important that we stated at the beginning, we really need to go and review the NOFO requirements and see if what we are proposing falls into the grants and into this proposal specifically.
Right. Thank you, Rebecca. Yeah, and I want to stress that again, because if anyone joined late, the number one takeaway from this session today is please read the NOFO. So we are doing our best to give you an overview of what is in the NOFO. But if you have any specific questions, the NOFO should be able to address a lot of those, because it's a fairly sizable document, and it has all the instructions on the details of the award, who's eligible, and what we're looking for, what type of impacts we want to see. Thanks, Rebecca.
No, thank you, Jesse. And the other thing that we are going to have this video saved, and it's going to be available. So if you have any questions related to the CARSI, they have not been answered already during this chat that we are having at this moment. So maybe
Rebecca, that reminds me as well. And so, yeah, that's a great point. We know that, it's 3 p.m. Costa Rica time. Maybe this time slot didn't work for you. And so if you have questions watching this later, again, we encourage you to write the San Jose CARSI ESF email address that we've highlighted before. But if you put them on the chat, we'll, of course, continue to monitor the Facebook event site. And we might not answer them directly in the chat because, as I mentioned at the start, on May 23rd, we'll be posting all of the questions we've received thus far about this NOFO opportunity, and we can pull your questions from the chat. Let's say you're watching it this evening or tomorrow morning. We'll add it to that list, and we'll make it public. And once it's public, we can go ahead and respond directly to you to make sure you see the answer.
Thank you, Jesse. So I have a question. Let's say I'm working on the proposal. I know that one of the first things that I need to do is to obtain the DUNS number. What happens if I have not been able to obtain? What should I do?
Great question. So again, we talked earlier about the registrations that are needed, sam.gov, DUNS number, and if you're a non-US NGO, and NCAGE code. And so I'm glad you asked that, Rebecca, because all three of those websites are not affiliated with the U.S. Embassy. And so, again, it can be difficult to get through that entire registration process for your DUNS number, especially if you haven't tried before. And so that is an area where the embassy cannot assist you. So on the website that we've posted a few times for getting your DUNS number, you should be able to find a help email, a help line where you can call and ask questions. Again, it doesn't cost any money to fill out these registrations, but I'm glad you asked that, Rebecca, because if you're running into issues there, the embassy cannot help you out. We really need you to work with the experts who monitor those sites to get through the registration.
Perfect. So now, I'm a foreign organization. I have this question for you. I'm a foreign organization. The guidelines indicates to include the cost of an audit in the budget. Is that necessary for us to?
Yes, the cost of audits is required, and you can actually include that in your budget proposal as either a direct or indirect cost in the awards line item budget. And so, in audit, I'll have to confirm this, and so we'll look into this. But I believe the audit is one of the few documents that can actually be in Spanish, especially if, as part of your proposal, you're submitting an audit that you've already done. You're a Costa Rican nonprofit organization, and you do your business in Spanish, and so you've had previous audits done in Spanish. I know I said everything has to be submitted in English. We'll confirm shortly, but I believe that previous audits can be filled out in Spanish and turned into us.
Perfect, thanks. Now, regarding to the specific areas, are they specific ones that we are allowed to work in or not work in? And please list specific examples of restrictions that are not allowed, just to get an idea.
Restrictions for funding. Great question. We get this a lot as you're working on your proposals. You don't want to put in something that we cannot fund. But a few examples are no military or police activity. The U.S. government has other funds that support security objectives here in Costa Rica. That's not a fit right now for the CARSI program. No new construction. So you can't propose building a new office building for your NGO. You can't purchase alcohol. So many times you might have events to celebrate, completion of your proposal objectives. That's fine. We expect you to have some food and drinks. Alcohol cannot be included there. And I've just confirmed. Audits can be submitted in Spanish. So that is one of the few areas where you can submit something not in English.
Perfect. Thanks for clarifying. I think that's a very valid point for those organizations that get those documents already in Spanish. So we have a question on Facebook. Oscar Valverde Cerros is asking us, will you give priority to proposals aimed at recovery at the face of the crisis caused by COVID-19?
Oscar, that's a great question. The NOFO itself, I can tell you, does not have any specific language that references COVID-19 or economic recovery from COVID-19, the pandemic, and the effect it's had on Costa Rica's economy and the global economy. So again, we won't prioritize any proposal that sort of addresses that. Again, remember the proposals have to be governance oriented. So if it is an NGO working with a government to improve some type of their services that will boost the economy for small businesses, we talked a little bit about that earlier, programs that will help governments support entrepreneurs and small businesses to do that service better if it's currently lacking in your community or your part of the country. Yes, and please feel free in your proposal to include that it will directly impact sectors of the economy that have been hurt by COVID-19. That could make for a compelling argument on why your proposal will have a lot of impact. But specifically in the NOFO, there is no mention of COVID-19. And so for that reason, that won't be a deciding factor of why the panel would select your proposal. But great question, Oscar. Thank you.
Thanks, Jesse. So let's talk about something, budget, money, funds. It's always a little more complicated. So for example, what would you say is the percent of the total that can be used for salaries?
Great question, Rebecca. I'm not going to give an answer like 25% because there's no exact answer. We know that our funds will go towards salaries and supporting this program. It really depends on your organization and on the project. Now, we want your an impact that you're going to have, what you're going to achieve to improve governance to be sustainable. And if all of that is going towards salaries that will no longer be funded when the award is over 18 months or 2 years from September 2021, our panel is probably going to take a look at that and say, we have some concerns with a proposal that really focuses on salaries that will not be existing once the program ends. So to answer your question, Rebecca, there is no exact number. It's just whatever is necessary to achieve the objectives that you lay out in your proposal.
Perfect, thanks. And regarding to the funds too, can a recipient rent or lease a vehicle with the grant funds?
Yes, you can rent vehicles if it is a necessary part of your program. That is possible. Again, it will all depend. If your grant proposal calls for 50 rented vehicles, we're likely going to have some questions on how necessary that is towards achieving improved governance in Costa Rica. But yes, that is an allowable expense.
Thank you. And now, another of the numbers that we need to obtain, we talk about the SAMs. Now let's talk about NICRA. How can I obtain an indirect cost rate agreement?
Okay, that's a great question, Rebecca. NICRA is available to NGOs that you'd probably be interested in obtaining a NICRA, which is a negotiated indirect costs rate agreement. That if you're doing a lot of work, your NGO with the U.S. government, it might make sense to negotiate a NICRA. But for most of you watching, if you're applying for the first time, or if you very rarely get funding from the U.S. government, it really doesn't make sense to pursue a NICRA. And honestly, if you haven't started by now, you're not going to get a NICRA before proposals are due by June 22nd. So again, it's a great question. And again, some of the larger NGOs that potentially work with the U.S. government all over the world, including Costa Rica, might have NICRAs, but it's not something that we necessarily see frequently in Costa Rica.
Perfect. Very complicated question, I guess.
It is. Yeah, it's a complicated topic for sure.
Yeah, and the process is the same. So I think this is more like a general question, but it's related to budget expenses and the categories. I know that there are some very specifics, like the personal, fringe benefits. What are the other categories that we got to make sure that they are incorporated in the budget?
Great. Yeah, so again, directing you to our grants.gov website. In the related documents tab of the NOFO that's posted there, you'll find a budget example, which should have a lot of these categories laid out for you. Also, there's a form called the SF 424. We haven't really talked about the SF 424s, but you'll find a bunch of those forms that you'll need to fill out as part of the proposal. And the SF 424A has a standard format for budget items. And Rebecca, you mentioned some of them. So personnel. So these are going to be project manager, people supporting the project, their salaries that we've talked about, fringe benefits. These are things that aren't directly linked to the project, but they're part of your organization's costs, such as health benefits, pension plans, things like that. Travel, so the COVID situation here is still, the pandemic is hitting Costa Rica really hard, and travel might be difficult. A lot of our current CARSI awardees have had to change around their programs to a more virtual focus. But obviously, we're hoping in the near future, travel will be part of your project proposals again. And so that might be if your NGO is based in Heredia, but you're implementing a lot of your programs in Limon, you would have travel expenses of traveling there, staying in hotels, and that is normal and expected. So travel equipment, so we can purchase some equipment, computer lab equipment, things like that, that makes sense as part of the project proposal. Just know that depending on how valuable that equipment is, there's the chance it might have to be returned to the U.S. government at the end of the project. But for minor forms of equipment, that likely wouldn't be the case. Same for supplies. So supplies are a reasonable expense. Contractual. So I talked about working with contractors earlier, but that could be conference room rental, speakers fees, security guard service. And again, that's where a for-profit business could potentially be part of your proposal as a contractor. And so I think those are a majority of the costs. I'm going to talk about cost sharing is not required on these awards. That's sort of program costs supported by your NGO or your organization as third party in kind, but those are not required.
Perfect. You just answered my next question. I was going to ask you about in-kind contributions and how this has to be implemented within the project. Thanks. Thank you very much, Jesse. Let me see if we do have some more questions in our Facebook page. I don't know at this moment, so
I think Rebecca, we've got a few more minutes, so we'll keep it open just in case anyone has any final questions. But again, some sort of broad overview, and thank you for your excellent moderation, Rebecca. But the NOFO is live. You can find it on grants.gov and on the U.S. Embassy website. It has a closing date of June 22nd. So please get started on your proposals ASAP. There's no extensions. We're going to be funding 3 to 4 organizations for $750,000. And the focus that we want to see on your proposals is improved governance. So that is what we'll be looking for: improving government services to the community and projects that are going to have the greatest impact. So again, if we don't have any further questions, I want to thank everyone for joining us today, for the great questions that we got from the group. Again, questions can also go to San Jose CARSI ESF at state.gov. If you're watching this later, feel free to post them in the chat and we'll get you an answer. But read the NOFO, visit the U.S. Embassy website, shoot us questions at that email address right there. And we really look forward to getting a strong number of or a large number of strong proposals that will improve governance and promote prosperity in Costa Rica. So I'm Jesse Golland, Economic Officer. Thank you again. And thanks very much to Rebecca Espinoza Benson for joining me today to share all this valuable information on how you apply, who's eligible, and answering some of your questions. But have a great afternoon, and we look forward to seeing your proposals. Thank you.